Dennis Porter, a 7-year-old boy, was in a terrible car accident with his mother. She was unable to withstand the injuries, and the boy was left alone. But something unbelievable happened just as he was about to give up on everything. Even though it was late at night and pouring heavily, Dennis and his mother, Allison, had to return home. "Come on, honey, I left your favorite food in the oven. Let's eat together when we get there," Allison said as she slid the child into the back seat. This was a daily occurrence, and Dennis always slept on the way home. They lived in Griffin, but Allison worked in Atlanta, where the company was headquartered. Since she spent most of the day in Atlanta, Allison placed Dennis in a school close to her office. That way, she would be close to her son in the event of an emergency. They were very close since they had no other family members. The rides home were always peaceful, but that night the rain was heavy, much heavier than usual. Dennis was startled by the noise of the passing freight trucks, but everything appeared to be in order. But unfortunately, that proved to be incorrect. Allison was focused on the road while Dennis dozed off in the back seat. When a trucker tried to pass at high speed, he collided with Allison's car. At that precise moment, the car was thrown off the road. The car twisted and toppled in the lane. Allison, still disoriented and terrified by what had happened, returned to look for her child, but the seatbelt and the position of the car prevented her from seeing him. "Calm down, son, it's all over now. Everything is fine," she assured him. As he listened to his mother and confirmed that he was fine in his safety seat, the boy became more relaxed. He wanted to cry, but he was too afraid to do so. After about 30 minutes, help came. The truck driver, who was the one who called for help, was the one who caused the accident. He explained that he was simply trying to get home on time for his daughter's birthday, but that the rain had impaired his vision. Because he was taken to the police station, the man missed his daughter's birthday for good, while Allison and Dennis were taken by ambulance to a nearby hospital. The doctors realized there was something wrong when they looked at the mother and child. Surprisingly, when the doctors examined Dennis, they found nothing to be worried about. Allison was in far worse condition. Perhaps caring for the child and the adrenaline rush at the time made it difficult to see what was wrong with her. They discovered severe internal bleeding, and the woman underwent emergency surgery. Dennis was at a loss for words as so many doctors came and went around his mother. "Hello, young man. Let's go get something to eat, shall we?" a doctor said, as he took the boy away. Kevin, the doctor, was a newcomer to the neighborhood. When asked about Dennis's father, the boy said that he had never met him and had no idea who he was. The toddler ate a sandwich and ice cream, but as soon as he could, he asked the doctor, "Sir, is Mom going to be okay?" The resident had never dealt with a situation like this before and was at a loss for words. He'd learned in college that you should never promise something you can't guarantee. "Boy, I'm sure my colleagues are going above and beyond for your mother, but don't be concerned, okay? You'll be home soon." Kevin remained by the boy's side the entire time, even when he fell asleep after much resistance. One of the doctors then came out and said that Allison was still conscious in the operating room and wanted to see her son. The resident foresaw what would happen, so he awoke Dennis and took him to his mother. Allison, who was lying in bed, asked Dennis to come over. She asked him to swear that he would always be an honest and caring boy with other people, just as he had been with her, and that he would be strong like he never had been before, because his life was about to change. Lastly, Dennis, know that I love you and will always look after you. Allison's eyes welled up with tears as she hugged her son one last time. Allison died that night, leaving Dennis to face the world alone. Dennis had no mother or father, so he was taken in by social services and placed in an orphanage. The boy fought back at first. It was hard to comprehend that he had a home, a mother who loved him unconditionally, and a consistent routine until recently. That was all gone. Only Kevin and a few of Allison's co-workers attended the funeral, which was small and simple. The boy kissed his mother goodbye and promised, through tears, that he would always return to see her and never forget who she was to him. The first few nights at the orphanage were trying. His last sound sleep had been in the car on the way home. When he awoke, the car had flipped over and his mother was yelling his name. The recollections seemed to come with more force during the night. When Dennis finally fell asleep, he dreamed of Allison entering the orphanage and rescuing him. When he awoke, he was still engulfed in the sensations delivered by this dream. He pondered it for hours, feeling increasingly isolated because he wasn't interacting with other kids. Because he was the newcomer, the kids made fun of him. "Hey Dennis, you're thinking about your mother's ghost again, aren't you? I think you should stop being such a jerk and accept the fact that she is no longer alive and will not return. Nobody will want to adopt a crybaby like you." The orphanage staff didn't seem to care and let things happen as they would. They would occasionally take all of the kids to a nearby park in the morning. There were some toys in areas where kids of all ages could play together, but Dennis was unable to make it work. When he found that the park was close to the cemetery where his mother was buried, he left the group and ran to keep his promise to always visit her. He couldn't just walk out of the orphanage whenever he wanted, so he had to make the most of the opportunity. Dennis sat down near the grave and told her about his life without her. He had said more in 10 minutes than he had in the entire time he had been at the orphanage. For the boy, it was as if she were right there with him. Dennis could even say what her reply would be and how she would laugh when he said something amusing. "Mom, I miss you so much," he kept repeating to himself, as if it were a mantra. Dennis also discussed how much he suffered at the orphanage, how the children were cruel, and how the staff was unhelpful. "I don't have anything here anymore. I don't have anyone, and I don't feel any happier than I did with you, Mom," Dennis said, raising his voice, angry and crying. "I wish to vanish from this world, to cease to exist. I don't want to live without you any longer. Take me with you. Take me," he yelled. Suddenly, a hand touched his shoulder and began to caress him, as if to comfort him. Dennis felt his chest warm as if he were dreaming, but this was too real. He quickly turned to face a woman with a charming smile. "Are you all right? I noticed you were crying and decided to see if you needed anything," the mysterious woman explained. Dennis wiped away his tears and struggled to say everything that was stuck in his throat, but he couldn't. "Look, I understand how difficult it is, but I can see that you don't want to be alone either. What if I sit next to you and we stay together?" she suggested, trying to console the boy in some way. Dennis simply nodded. The woman introduced herself as Kate, and she was visiting the grave of her son, who died a few years ago and was a little older than Dennis. The boy then disarmed himself and was finally able to communicate. He said that his mother had recently died and that he was there to see her, but he had actually run away from the orphanage tour to be there. After a while, Kate offered to drive him back to the orphanage. Dennis didn't remember the exact address, but he did remember the streets he had taken to get there. They passed in front of the park and saw a carousel on their way back. Kate observed Dennis's fascination with the toy and encouraged him to ride one of the horses. The boy smiled for the first time in weeks as the carousel began to spin. When he looked around, he noticed several twinkling lights on the trees, as well as numerous lights and decorations, indicating that it was already Christmas time. When Dennis got off the ride, he stepped on something large. When he looked down, he noticed a leather wallet on the floor. There weren't many people in the park at the time, so he bent down quietly to pick it up while looking around to see if it belonged to anyone. Dennis was taken aback when he discovered what was inside the wallet. He'd never seen so much money before. There were a few $100 bills, some of which were crumpled. With that much money, he could finally get away from the orphanage. Dennis returned to Kate without telling her what he had found. He wondered how a man could have dropped all that money and not returned to look for it. However, as Dennis and Kate were leaving the park, they came across a security guard, and the boy felt a shock run through his body. He recalls making a promise to his mother on her deathbed to be honest and caring with others. Dennis asked Kate to wait a moment before pulling the wallet from his pocket and handing it to the security guard, explaining that it had been lost near the carousel. "My goodness, I'm glad you found Mr. Watson's wallet, boy. He is one of our park's longest-serving employees, and he was devastated to have lost his entire end-of-year salary. You just saved his family's Christmas, the little guy." The security guard returns to Kate and concludes, "Miss, congratulations on your son's good conduct. You must be very proud of him." That last remark touched both of them silently. When Kate and Dennis arrived at the orphanage, they expected everyone to be concerned about the boy. However, the people in charge were only surprised to see him return at that time. They didn't seem to notice that he hadn't returned with the others. When the other kids saw how uncomfortable he was, they teased him. "See, the crybaby was not even missed. Go to your room and cry some more," After all, isn't that why you returned?" Kate was astounded that the employees had overlooked his absence. Dennis felt terrible and humiliated. The woman left with a heavy heart and went to a nearby church. She hoped Dennis would find a family who would love and care for him. Kate couldn't get a good night's sleep for the next few days. She had a dream one night about her deceased son, whom she had gone to see the afternoon she met Dennis. It had been a few years since she had dreamed about the boy, and she was shaken as a result. She couldn't get back to sleep. She stood up to get a glass of water and thought about her last memory with her son. The two were on a beach, as they did almost every weekend, but she was distracted for a few seconds while applying sunscreen, and he went into the sea by himself. Her heart sank when she realized the boy was not at the bank. Hours later, the rescue team found the boy in the sea, lifeless. In the dream, the boy appeared in the house and kept repeating, "Mom, please take me with you," while delivering a note with an address. While drinking water in the kitchen, Kate remembered the address and wrote it down on a scrap of paper so she wouldn't forget it the next morning, even though she thought it was all a dream. The next day, she told her husband everything that had happened, from meeting Dennis to having strange dreams about her dead son. "I'm not sure what's going on here, my love, but I believe you should pay attention if our son is trying to tell you something," said the man. Kate checked the address on her phone to make sure it was correct. The address, to her surprise, was real and led to a home for children who had lost their parents. It was the same house in which Dennis resided. The woman's husband is baffled because he thinks it is too coincidental. The woman then informs him that she knows the child from a cemetery. "That day, I felt good with him. I knew he needed me, but I also knew I needed him. We spent time together. He's a good boy, and I felt whole again for the first time in a long time," Kate said. Her husband hugged her tightly and told her they were going straight to the orphanage. One of the employees greeted the couple and informed them that visiting hours had ended and that they needed to call ahead to make an appointment. The man then told the worker what was going on and tried to persuade him to make an exception, but the worker refused. The husband then remembered what Kate had said about how they didn't seem to care about how the kids felt. With that in mind, Kate's husband presented him with two $50 bills. The worker said yes and opened the door for the couple without further questioning. "My boss isn't here, so enjoy yourself," he said it with a big smile on his face. Within seconds of entering the room, Kate recognized Dennis. He sat alone on the sofa while the other kids played. Dennis ran up to Kate and hugged her as soon as he saw her. The husband took advantage of the moment and began questioning the boy. "Hey, what was a kid like you doing in the cemetery?" "I was talking to my mother, sir," Dennis replied, looking down. "I asked her to take me away from here." The couple was taken aback by the boy's speech. How could someone so young say such a thing? Kate and her husband exchanged nervous glances, as if they were afraid of what they were about to say to each other. They wanted to adopt Dennis and take him home right away, but the situation wasn't that simple. Kate had no intention of implying that she was replacing her son, but perhaps her dream was a kind of permission to love another child in her home. After all, her life has never been the same since her son left, and nothing and no one appears to be able to change that. After much deliberation at home and the creation of a plan to navigate the complicated adoption process, the couple decided it was time to move on and, most importantly, provide a home for those in desperate need. They spent months trying to meet all the requirements for adopting Dennis and paid almost daily visits to ensure he was healthy and well cared for. After what seemed like an eternity, the day finally arrived. Dennis went to the orphanage reception and found Kate and her husband waiting for him. Dennis ran to her when Kate opened her arms with tears in her eyes. The hug moved even the workers and some kids who mocked him. Dennis returned home to the family he had only recently met. He gradually stopped being a reclusive kid and began to get along much better with others. During a Sunday lunch, something that seemed to be a new tradition within his new family, Dennis proudly said, "I thank you very much for everything, but I also thank my mother. I'm sure she got me out of the orphanage in some way. After all, she had promised to look after me." Kate thanked him as well, saying she went to church the day she met Dennis. Inside, she prayed that the boy would find a family who would love and care for him. She had no idea this would be her family. Dennis and his new parents visited the cemetery once a month in memory of their deceased. Dennis got a rose bouquet for his mother's grave. Kate was also always with her late son, making it clear that both would never be forgotten. Kate and Dennis felt that, in some strange way, they had been truly responsible for that unlikely union, which ended up forming a happy family again. They walked towards the park after leaving the cemetery, and Dennis ran to his favorite ride, the carousel. Meanwhile, his parents watched the boy go round and round with the utmost care and affection. If you enjoyed this story, I ask you to please leave a like. This other video that is currently appearing on the screen will probably move you as well. Good luck and see you in the next video.